Ladies and gentlemen, let me talk to you today about something that's been messing a whole lot of folks up. Something that creeps in real quiet but does major damage when you let it live in your mind too long. I'm talking about comparison. That sneaky little trap that gets us looking left and right, measuring our lives by somebody else's blessings instead of focusing on what we've got going on. Let me tell you something, straight comparison is the thief of joy. It don't matter how much you've accomplished, how much you've grown, how far God has brought you. If you're always looking at someone else's lane, you'll never feel like what you've done is enough. You see, the problem with comparison is it always puts you at a disadvantage. Always. Either you end up feeling like you're not good enough because somebody else seems to be doing better, or you get a puffed up spirit because you think you're doing better than someone else. But either way you lose. Either way you step outside the lane God created just for you. The moment you start comparing, you lose focus. You lose peace. You lose that deep down joy that comes from simply being grateful for where you are and what you've got. In the Bible, we are said to fix our eyes forward, to run with perseverance the race marked out for us. That means your race, not your neighbors, your journey, not your cousins, the path God carved out for you. And if you're always checking to the left or the right, trying to see how someone else is doing it, you're not paying attention to your own steps. You're stumbling through your life because you're walking while looking sideways. That's how people trip. That's how people fall. Let's be real, social media doesn't help. You log on and see someone else taking vacations, buying new cars, getting promotions, buying a house, getting engaged, and you start to feel like maybe you're behind. Maybe something's wrong with you. Maybe you miss your shot, but let me tell you something, the timeline is not your life. That highlight reel you see online is not the full story. You don't know the tears behind that smile. You don't know the debt behind that luxury. You don't know the pain behind that relationship. And the danger of comparison is it gets you envying something you don't even understand. You're wanting a life that would crush you if you had to carry it. In Bible, we are said that envy rots the bones. That means comparison will eat you alive from the inside out. It starts in your thoughts. Then it gets in your spirit. Then it starts to shape how you move, how you speak, how you treat people, how you treat yourself. And before you know it, you're chasing someone else's dream, living someone else's idea of success, and you've completely lost sight of what you were born to do. The truth is, joy comes from alignment, from knowing who you are while you're here and what season you're in. But if you're constantly measuring your life up against somebody else's, you're always going to feel like you're coming up short. And that ain't fair to you. God didn't make you to be a copy of anyone else. He made you one of one, a divine original. You were fearfully and wonderfully made, knit together on purpose, for a purpose. You don't need to become anybody. You just need to be who you already are. The enemy loves comparison because it takes your eyes off your own blessings. If he can get you to focus on what you don't have, he can make you forget everything you do have. He can make you ungrateful, insecure, bitter. And when you're in that space, it's hard to hear from God. It's hard to recognize divine doors opening. It's hard to step into your destiny when you're too busy looking at someone else's lane. What's even crazier is this: a lot of times the people you're comparing yourself to are comparing themselves to someone else. It's a cycle, a loop. Everybody trying to measure up to an image that's not even real. So you're chasing shadows, chasing illusions, chasing what looks good instead of walking in what is good. And all the while, your joy, your peace, your confidence, your growth is sitting right there, waiting for you to come back home to yourself. You can't appreciate your journey if you're always admiring someone else's destination. You don't know what they had to sacrifice to get there. You don't know what it's costing them to stay there. So why are you putting yourself through pain for a version of life that might not even be your blessing? In Bible, we are said that each one should test their own actions. Then they can take pride in themselves alone without comparing themselves to someone else. That's not arrogance, that's healthy self-awareness. That's understanding that your worth is not measured by the world's applause, but by your own alignment with God's purpose for your life. When you stop comparing, you start living, you start seeing clearly. You start loving deeper. You start being grateful for what's in your hands. You start noticing the little miracles. You start building with peace. You start choosing joy. You stop striving and start flowing because you realize you're not in a race against anyone. You're not late. You're not behind. You're exactly where you need to be. And joy, real joy, is found right there Everybody wants to feel like they're moving forward, like they're going somewhere. We all want progress, momentum, purpose. But the mistake we often make is thinking we have to keep up with the pace of someone else to prove we're doing okay. The truth is, you are running your own race. You weren't designed to run anyone else's. Life isn't a competition. It's a calling. And your calling has its own pace, its own process, and its own timing. When you understand that, you stop living rushed. You stop chasing after somebody else's idea of success and start walking in your own assignment. There's nothing wrong with ambition. There's nothing wrong with setting goals, dreaming big, or pushing yourself toward better. But the moment you start running just to keep up with what you see around you, you're no longer being led by purpose, you're being driven by pressure. That pressure to prove something, to show people you've made it, to try and silence the insecurities by performing for approval. And when that becomes your motivation, you start missing the point. Because running someone else's race won't ever lead to your fulfillment. In Bible, we are said that the race is not given to the swift or the strong, but to the one who endures. That tells me it's not about speed. It's about consistency. It's about staying in your lane, showing up every day, and trusting the process God has for you. Just because someone else hit their breakthrough earlier doesn't mean yours isn't coming. Just because someone else got there faster doesn't mean they're ahead of you. That was just their time. You've got your own. Sometimes we get so caught up in timelines. By this age, I should have this. By that age, I should be there. But where did that pressure come from? Who set that clock you're trying so hard to keep up with? Because if it wasn't God, it doesn't matter. Some people blossom early, and others bloom later, but late doesn't mean less. Delay doesn't mean denied. The world might tell you you're behind, but God is never late. And if you're still here, breathing, living, moving, then your purpose is still active. You're still in motion, even if it doesn't look like what someone else is doing. You ever watch a track meet? All the runners start at different points, but it's still a fair race because the track is curved. They each have their own lane, measured and designed so that everyone runs the same distance. It might look like someone else is ahead of you, but that's just the curve of their lane. When the race unfolds, it balances out. It evens up. You'll see that everybody had the same stretch to run. They just had to stay in their own lane and keep their eyes forward. That's how life is. That's how God set it up. If you keep looking around, you'll start drifting. You'll step out of bounds. You'll waste energy on distractions instead of direction. In Bible, we are said that we are God's handiwork created in Christ Jesus to do good works which He prepared in advance for us to do. That means your path was already mapped out. Your gifts were already accounted for. Your journey was pre-written with divine purpose. So it makes no sense to live in someone else's footsteps when God made a path with your name on it. You can't walk in fullness while living as a copy. The blessing is in the authenticity. The grace is in the original. You weren't built to be a duplicate. The danger in trying to run someone else's race is that you don't know their endurance level. You don't know their preparation. You don't know their pain tolerance. You don't know what it costs them to be where they are. So trying to imitate someone else's grind might leave you exhausted, frustrated, or even broken. Not because you're not strong, but because you were never meant to carry what they're carrying. You've got your own assignment, your own weight, your own season. And that's more than enough. God is strategic. He doesn't waste experiences. Everything in your life has been part of the training. Slow seasons, training. The silent nights, training. The closed doors, the heartbreaks, the setbacks. All of it training. Just because it doesn't feel like movement doesn't mean you're not progressing. Seeds grow underground before they break the surface. There's power in the unseen. There's purpose in the waiting. There's development in the delay. When you start trusting your lane, something powerful happens. You stop competing and start creating. You stop comparing and start contributing. You realize that what's for you really is for you and no one can take it. No one can block it. No one can do it like you. In Bible, we are said that those who wait on the Lord shall renew their strength. That strength doesn't come from running fast. It comes from running with faith, walking with trust, believing that your path is enough, even when it doesn't look like much right now. You don't need to rush to prove anything. You don't need to catch up with anybody. You're not behind. You're not overlooked. You're on assignment. You're in purpose. You're moving with heaven's pace. And the moment you embrace your lane, the moment you stop trying to win somebody else's race, That's the moment you start walking in real peace, real clarity, real joy. Because you finally understand your race is yours for a reason. There's something powerful about knowing that you're one of one. That out of all the people in this world, there's nobody exactly like you. Your fingerprint, your voice, your personality, your story, it's all been custom made by God. You weren't an accident. You weren't a duplicate. You were created with intention. When you really start to grasp that, something shifts on the inside. You stop looking around for validation because you understand that your value is already built in. You don't have to be like anyone else to matter. In fact, trying to be like someone else only causes you to miss what's been placed uniquely in you. God doesn't make duplicates. He's not in the business of mass production. He doesn't just stamp people out like some factory line. He designs. He crafts. He forms. Every detail of who you are was shaped on purpose, for a purpose. In Bible, we have said that we are fearfully and wonderfully made. That means with care, with excellence, with reverence. That means you're not some generic version of greatness. You are an original, handcrafted masterpiece. But the world doesn't always teach you that. It tells you to blend in, to follow trends, to fit the mold. It teaches you to value sameness over uniqueness, to trade authenticity for acceptance. And if you're not careful, you'll spend your whole life trying to be like, trying to fit into spaces that were never shaped for you, trying to become a version of success that was never meant for you to chase. And in the process, you'll start to forget who you really are. The issue is we often think that different means less. If your journey doesn't look like everyone else's, if your personality doesn't match what's popular, if your gifts don't shine the same way as others, you start to question your own worth. But being different doesn't mean you're off track. It means you're in alignment with how you were built. That uniqueness is your power. That distinctiveness is your calling card. You weren't made to blend in. You were made to stand out. In Bible, we have said that before we were formed in the womb, God knew us. That means the plan was in motion before the flesh even existed. That means the Creator thought about your purpose, your path, and your personality before anyone ever had an opinion about you. If God took that kind of time crafting you, why waste your life trying to become someone else? You were already enough from the beginning. You were already equipped with what you needed. The world may have convinced you to cover it up, but it's still in there. That brilliance, that boldness, that beauty, it's still in you. What's crazy is we live in a time where imitation is easy. To copy someone's style, mimic someone's career, follow someone else's footsteps. But copying someone else will never lead to your purpose. You can't borrow someone's blueprint and expect to build your destiny. What worked for them might not work for you because your assignment is different. Your audience is different. Your timing is different. And when you try to fit into someone else's mold, you limit what God can do through your own life. Sometimes the thing that makes you feel like you don't belong is actually the thing that sets you apart for something greater. That voice that's different. That perspective that doesn't match the crowd. That gift that doesn't seem like everyone else's. That struggle that no one else understands. All of that is part of the design. And when you try to hide it or tone it down, you end up silencing the very thing God wants to use to make impact. In Bible, we have said that we are the light of the world, a city on a hill that cannot be hidden. You can't shine if you're constantly trying to dim yourself to make others comfortable. You weren't made to live small. You weren't made to play safe. You were made to reflect the creativity of the one who made you. And creativity doesn't repeat itself. God is the ultimate innovator. He never runs out of newness. So why would he make you just to copy someone else? The moment you embrace who you really are is the moment you start walking in power. When you stop apologizing for how you're wired, when you stop shrinking to make other people feel better, when you stop waiting for permission to be yourself, that's when purpose starts unlocking. That's when doors start opening. That's when peace floods in. Because nothing is more freeing than being exactly who God made you to be. It doesn't matter if the world doesn't understand it. It doesn't matter if people criticize what they can't categorize. You weren't made to be easily defined. You were made to be discovered. And that discovery process, it's ongoing. You're still unfolding, still becoming, still growing into the fullness of what you were created to be. You don't need to rush that. You don't need to force it. You just need to stay rooted in the truth that you're one of a kind. And that's not a flaw, it's the point. So stop second guessing the way you're built. Stop wishing you had someone else's personality, someone else's voice, someone else's gifts. God knew exactly what he was doing when he made you. He didn't mess up. He didn't fall short. He made you enough. The right flavor, the right tone, the right energy, the right soul. You were born with everything you need to walk in what's yours. And when you live from that truth, you don't have to chase approval, you carry purpose. You don't have to fight to be seen you shine by just being real. It's easy to look around at other people's lives and start measuring yourself based on what you see. Maybe they have more money, more success, more recognition, or it just seems like they've got everything figured out. That's when those quiet questions creep in. Am I doing enough? Am I far enough? Am I even valuable? The danger in all of that is that your value isn't based on someone else's progress. You don't become more or less worthy because of how fast someone else is moving. Your identity is not tied to their timeline. And when you really understand that, you free yourself from a cycle that steals your peace and clouds your vision. We live in a culture that's always putting people on pedestals. We see someone winning and automatically feel like we're losing. We hear someone got a promotion and we start questioning our job. We see a friend get married and suddenly we're wondering if we'll ever find love. But that's not how God measures value. In Bible, we have said that man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. That means what impresses people doesn't necessarily impress God. He's not caught up in who's trending, who's verified, who's got the biggest following, or who hit their goals the fastest. He's looking at your heart, your character, your faithfulness in the small things. That's where your value lives, not in performance, but in purpose. The trap of measuring your worth by someone else's progress is that you'll always feel like you're coming up short. No matter how much you do, there's always someone who's doing more. And that mindset will have you chasing approval instead of walking in identity. It'll make you think you need to prove yourself just to feel valid. But the truth is, you were valuable before you accomplished anything. Before the awards, before the house, before the status, you already had worth because you were made in God's image. You were already chosen. You were already seen. In Bible, we are said that we are a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's special possession. Not because of what we do, but because of who He is and how He sees us. That's a position you don't earn, it's one you receive. And when you know you're already approved, you stop performing for people who don't hold your destiny in their hands. You stop striving to match someone else's rhythm and start trusting the beat of your own purpose. A lot of times we get discouraged not because we're not doing well, but because we're not doing as well as someone else. But that's like being upset that a tree grows slower than a flower. A tree takes longer because it grows deeper. It has stronger roots, it lasts longer. The flower may bloom fast, but it withers just as quickly. So don't let someone else's fast bloom make you question the depth of your own growth. You're not late, you're lasting. You're building something real. And that takes time. If you're not careful, you'll let someone's highlight reel make you question your behind the scenes. But you don't know what it took for them to get there. You don't know the battles they fought, the doubts they faced, the sacrifices they made. And even if they didn't struggle like you did, that doesn't change your worth. God's not grading on a curve. He's not handing out gold stars to the fastest, the flashiest, or the most visible. He's faithful to complete what He started in you. Sometimes your progress doesn't show up in big wins. Sometimes it shows up in quiet victories. Choosing peace instead of arguing. Waking up and trying again. Staying hopeful when things feel heavy. That kind of progress matters. Just because it doesn't come with applause doesn't mean it's not real. In Bible, we are said not to grow weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we don't give up. That means your value and your harvest are not canceled just because someone else reached theirs sooner. It's not a race. It's a process. When you compare your life to someone else's progress, you start resenting your own. And resentment blocks gratitude. It keeps you from seeing all the ways God has already moved, all the things He's already brought you through. You can't appreciate your current blessings if your eyes are always on somebody else's. But the moment you start paying attention to your own journey, you begin to see how much you've actually grown. You start to see how far you've come, even if you're not where you want to be yet. In Bible, we have said that each one should carry their own load. That doesn't mean isolate, it means take ownership. Be responsible for your journey. Run your race, celebrate your wins no matter how small. Learn your lessons, embrace your story, honor your pace. The more you do that, the less you need comparison to feel confident. You stop asking, am I doing enough? And start saying, I'm becoming who I was created to be. God didn't call you to keep up, he called you to walk with him. That's a different pace. That's a deeper rhythm. And in that rhythm, value isn't earned, it's recognized. When you realize that your worth doesn't fluctuate based on how well someone else is doing, you can finally rest. You can build with peace. You can grow without pressure. You can show up fully as yourself, knowing that your progress might not be loud, but it's lasting. It's not always visible, but it's always valuable. We all go through seasons where it feels like nothing is happening. Like all your effort is adding up to silence. Like the world around you is moving forward and you're standing still. In those moments, it's easy to feel like you're being overlooked, forgotten, or somehow falling behind. That's when comparison becomes the loudest voice in your head. You start looking at who's winning, who's being promoted, who's getting recognition, who's getting married, who's achieving everything you've been praying for, and that voice whispers, what about me? But what you have to understand is that God works in layers. He's not only working around you, he's working in you. And when it seems like nothing's moving, that's often when he's doing the deepest work. Progress doesn't always look like motion. Sometimes it looks like patience. Sometimes it looks like staying still. Sometimes it looks like healing from things nobody sees. You can't always measure growth by what's visible. In fact, the most important growth often happens underground, like roots spreading beneath the surface of the soil, setting the foundation for something strong and lasting. In Bible, we are said that we walk by faith, not by sight. That means we can't base our trust on what we see happening. We have to lean into what we believe God is doing. And even when it feels like nothing is happening for you, God is still writing your story. It's hard, though, when it feels like your waiting season is lasting longer than everyone else's. When the breakthrough hasn't come, the door hasn't opened, the opportunity hasn't shown up, you can start to question your worth. You start to wonder if maybe you missed your moment. But just because it hasn't happened yet doesn't mean it's not coming. Delay is not denial. In Bible, we are said that there is a time for everything and a season for every activity under the heavens. That means your life has a divine calendar. And just because you don't see the date doesn't mean the appointment isn't scheduled. Other people's blessings are not a threat to yours. Their breakthrough is not your deadline. Their win is not your loss. What God has for you is still yours, and it doesn't expire because someone else got theirs first. You don't need to rush what God is still building. You don't need to question what's still under construction. Sometimes he slows things down so he can grow you up, so he can build the character to sustain the calling, so he can shape the wisdom to carry the weight. You might not see it yet, but when the time is right, what he's prepared in you will be revealed through you. In Bible, we are said that those who wait on the Lord shall renew their strength. Waiting is not weakness. Waiting is strength training. It's in the waiting that you learn how to trust beyond what you can control. It's in the waiting that you learn how to pray deeper, how to listen closer, how to find peace even when everything looks uncertain. That kind of strength doesn't come from instant success. It comes from trusting the slow work of God. It comes from learning to be still when everything in you wants to move, and from holding on your mind says to let go. If you let comparison rule your vision, you'll miss the blessing in your process. You'll start despising your season. You'll rush past the lessons. You'll chase timing that's not meant for you. But what if the silence is sacred? What if the delay is designed? What if God is building something so unique in you that it just can't be rushed? You can't microwave purpose. You can't force maturity. You can't hurry healing. Some things have to develop slow so they can stand strong. It's also in these quiet seasons that God fine-tunes your ear. When everything around you is moving, it's easy to get distracted by noise. But when it's still, when it's silent, when it feels like nobody sees you, that's when you're most tuned into his voice. That's when you learn to follow his lead instead of chasing applause. That's when you find out what you really believe. And in that place, your faith deepens. Your confidence gets rooted. Your purpose takes shape in ways that fame or visibility could never give you. Sometimes God will hide you for a season so that he can prepare you. Just like David was anointed before he was appointed, there was a stretch of time between the promise and the palace. A time when he was still in the field, still watching sheep, still fighting battles that no one saw. But just because it wasn't public didn't mean it wasn't powerful. God was training his hands for war and his heart for leadership. And that hidden season was necessary. It was essential. The same goes for you. Don't curse the field you're in. Don't despise the quiet. That's the training ground. In Bible, we have said that he who began a good work in you will carry it on to completion. That means the story is still in progress. God doesn't start something in you without the intention of finishing it. You may not be able to predict the timing, but you can trust the outcome. You can rest in the fact that your story is not over, even if this chapter is slower than you expected. Every person's journey unfolds at a different pace. What looks like a sprint for someone else might be a marathon for you. And that's okay. There's no one-size-fits-all timeline for purpose. There's no universal deadline for destiny. You are not behind. You are not late. You are being shaped for something only you can do. And when the moment comes, when the door opens, when the opportunity arrives, you'll be ready. Not rushed, not insecure, not incomplete, but ready because you honored the season that others couldn't see. Sometimes the loudest battle you fight is not with the world outside, it's with the voice inside that keeps telling you that you're not enough. That internal critic that rises up when you see someone else succeeding, someone else shining, someone else walking in what looks like the life you've been praying for. You start wondering what they have that you don't. You start comparing your chapter 2 to their chapter 20. And without realizing it, you begin to feel small. But the truth is, when you're constantly looking to your left and your right, you stop seeing what's right in front of you. You stop noticing what God has already placed in your hands. Comparison will rob you of contentment. It'll steal your peace, cloud your joy, and make you question the very blessings you once prayed for. You'll be so busy trying to measure your life against someone else's that you won't even notice your own answered prayers. You'll forget that at one point you were begging for the very things you now take for granted. In Bible, we are said to give thanks in all circumstances. That means gratitude isn't about having the most, it's about recognizing what you already have. And when your heart is full of gratitude, comparison loses its grip. There's always going to be someone who seems to have more and more success, more influence, more followers, more recognition, but more doesn't always mean better. You don't know the weight they carry. You don't know cost of their calling. You don't know the private pain behind their public praise. What looks perfect on the outside might be broken on the inside. So when you compare, you're comparing a full picture of yourself to a highlight reel of someone else. And that will never be a fair fight. Peace doesn't come from having what someone else has. It comes from embracing what's yours. When you recognize that your journey is yours alone, and that it was handcrafted by God with intention, you begin to walk differently. You stop trying to chase someone else's success, and you start tending to your own garden. In Bible, we are said that each person should test their own actions. Then they can take pride in themselves alone without comparing themselves to someone else. That means your joy, your peace, your sense of accomplishment is not supposed to come from looking at others. It's supposed to come from looking within and honoring your own growth. You're not in competition with anyone else. Life is not a race to see who gets there first. It's a journey of becoming, a daily process of growth, faith, and surrender. God didn't put you on this earth to be a copy of someone else. He made you an original. He gave you a specific purpose, a unique combination of gifts, a story that no one else can live. And when you try to be someone else, you miss out on the beauty of becoming who you really are. It takes courage to stay in your own lane when everyone around you is moving fast in theirs. It takes strength to celebrate others without resenting your own process. But that's what maturity looks like. That's what faith looks like, trusting that your time is coming, trusting that what God has for you is for you. In Bible, we are said that we are God's workmanship, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which he prepared in advance for us to do. That means your purpose is pre-written. Your assignment is secured. There's no need to compete when God has already carved a lane with your name on it. Jealousy often comes when we stop appreciating the beauty of our own journey. When we lose sight of how far we've come, it becomes easier to envy someone else's destination. But if you pause and take inventory of your life, you'll see growth. You'll see answered prayers. You'll see the fingerprints of God even in the hard seasons. And when you start focusing on that, the bitterness begins to fade. The envy quiets down. The peace starts rising. God is not limited. He's not running out of blessings. He's not choosing favorites. He's not saying yes to someone else and no to you out of spite. Sometimes he says not yet because he's preparing something greater. Sometimes he holds you back because the foundation isn't ready. And sometimes he's working in ways you can't even see. But he's always working. He's always present. And he's always faithful. In the Bible, we have said that the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard our hearts and minds. That kind of peace doesn't come from having everything figured out. It comes from trusting that even when it doesn't look like you expected, God is still in control. It comes from letting go of the need to keep up and choosing instead to keep faith. You're not behind. You're not missing out. You're not too late. You are right where you need to be, learning exactly what you need to learn, becoming exactly who you're called to become. Your story isn't supposed to look like theirs. It's supposed to look like yours. And when you fully embrace that, when you choose to stop comparing and start celebrating, peace will flood your soul. Joy will return. And contentment will no longer be something you chase, but something you carry. When you stop comparing and start embracing who you are, you step into the freedom of living with purpose and peace. Your value isn't determined by someone else's journey, success, or timeline. God created you uniquely with a plan designed just for you. What he has for you won't pass you by. And what's meant for others doesn't diminish what's meant for you. Stay faithful to your process. Celebrate others without questioning your own progress. And trust that your story is unfolding exactly as it should. In the Bible, we are said to run the race marked out for us, not someone else's race, but our own. Keep your eyes on your path, your heart anchored in gratitude, and your spirit focused on God's promises. There's power in knowing that you are enough, just as you are, right where you are. Walk in that truth and don't compare yourself to anyone.